All right, it's wonderful to be here with everyone here today. As he kindly introduced me already, Ben Bellows, I'm the Chief Business Officer and one of the co-founders of NIVI. And I wanted to speak to you about this role of bridging quality and increasing access through the power of commercial digital models. And it comes out of my own personal experience, one that reflects over the last 13 years. So I hope you'll bear with me over the next 15 minutes as I tell a story in 3 parts about why I believe commercial models in particular are going to drive change in the space we're working in and in adjacent spaces, both in public and in private sectors. So, scene 1. Spring of 2009, I was finishing my PhD in epidemiology. So although I work in technology now, my background's actually in public health. And it was at that time in 2009 where I was looking, what comes next? What do I do after the PhD? And I was seeing very few options in the Bay Area in the economic recession then. So I looked east, found a position with the Population Council, if you're familiar with them. They're a research institute out of New York. And I joined their office in Kenya with the privilege of leading a Gates-funded 5-year initiative to evaluate consumer-facing digital healthcare finance in East Africa and South Asia. We were looking specifically at vouchers, the role of means-tested, equity-targeted subsidies in both improving access and nudging quality through demand in places like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Bangladesh, and Cambodia. The same month I landed in Kenya, in August of 2009, coincidentally, there were sea cables connecting broadband for the first time to the East African region. Prior to then, it had all been satellite. If you're looking at the connection speeds before then, through this interconnection through satellites, extremely slow and high cost. That all changed almost overnight. As I settled into Nairobi those first months, I began noticing first the quality improving in our office and within the ecosystem around town. And then prices started coming down on digital. And then these interesting secondary effects began rolling out across the economy, in agriculture, in health, in education, in business. All of this a frothy, exuberant time in Kenya and in the region. And certainly the development space, of which we're all part of, was not exempt from that exuberance. Everybody worth their salt was trying M-Health. It was peak buzz for M-Health those days. Everybody wanted to try a pilot. Every NGO was scrambling to do it. I caught the bug, and in a better sense. And a colleague of mine, Eric Green at the Population Council, the two of us put together a Saving Lives at Birth proposal, $250,000, 2-year concept, in which we'd create an app, a solution, for women to begin to identify their own high-risk pregnancies or signs or symptoms, and understanding, is this a high-risk or a low-risk situation I'm in, and then to route them to appropriate points of care. In the first phase of the pilot, we ran this with 80 participants, 80 volunteers at a Jacaranda clinic, comparing to what the nurse would assess at intake, just to see how well does this screening mechanism, delivered through IVR, interactive voice response, how well does this work compared to what the nurse would adjudicate? And we found that it was actually comparable. In fact, when it came to mental health red flags or concerns that the women had, they were more comfortable confiding in the phone. If you think about that for a second, the significance, the importance. They were more comfortable talking, if you will, or engaging with the phone than with the nurse. So we had this great model. We ran it for 2 years. And what do you imagine happened at the end of it? Technically proficient, and entirely lacking a business model or any means to drive itself forward beyond that initial grant. We were back to day 0, effectively, when that grant dried up. So what do you do in a situation like that? You write a nice report, and you shelve the idea. It was incredibly dissatisfying. Scene 2, 2015, 2 years later, still with that dissatisfaction with business as usual in the back of my mind, I met Sid Goyle He was an entrepreneur in residence at an investment fund called Invested Development. If you remember the TV show Arrested Development, it might give you a sense of what the fund was about. And Sid's background as a serial entrepreneur, multiple successful exits, as a software engineer, and as somebody who had previously served as the chief technology officer at TinyURL, he knew commercial. He knew the value of commercial. And we both realized we shared this conviction that commercial models could drive social impact in the health space. It's a matter of finding the right way to do it. And that was the genesis of Nivi. We got a bit of funding, initial funding from a wonderful corporate philanthropy, Merck from others, you'll be familiar with them, MSD from others outside of Canada and the United States. And they gave us the wherewithal to begin thinking about and developing this commercial model. Together with Eric Green, who you'll recall from Scene 1, was working with me on Baby Monitor, the three of us created Nivi, got it off the ground with an idea initially around doing an IVR solution that would precisely answer what we thought was going to be top of mind with most people considering contraceptive options. You simply need to walk through a few questions, help them derive what's the most optimal combination of factors that they have around contraceptive preferences and fertility preferences and contraceptive histories, and come up with a solution for them. Well, on this IVR solution, we added a small SMS helpline just in case somebody had other, maybe some related questions that we could answer in our free time. We launched it, and we got so much inbound traffic on that SMS helpline on the side, we realized there's a much more generalized problem or opportunity, depending on how you want to think of it, in answering and maintaining conversations on sexual and reproductive health that might lead to answering those questions around which method's most appropriate to me, but they might lead to resolving concerns or moving someone from a state of mild curiosity into a higher state of readiness. So conversation is what we realized was the next big thing, at least for us. Today, that product, which we understand to be Nivi, runs 24/7. It doesn't get turned off when the grant finishes or when the revenue from a particular partner dries up. It runs 24/7. It remembers where the consumer last left off, so that prior state of where they're at in the bot, they pick up the conversation the next time they re-engage with us. And it's answering health information, answering questions top of mind, providing counseling, providing referrals, and ensuring follow-up on care. So fundamentally, it's doing two things for consumers. One, providing health information, and two, providing navigation, providing a means into the health system and letting consumers know where they can go with confidence based on their geolocation and what they need top of mind. But we didn't build this just for consumers. Now, the business model here is what's critical to drive the innovation forward. And what we've done is build a solution for organizations, certainly organizations in the development space, familiar NGOs like many of us here today. But we've built it also to operate with for-profit partners and with public sector partners, all built on the same pricing model. At the end of the day, we recognize that we're not all that terribly unique collectively here in this community of practice. There are 4 core jobs to be done that most organizations will need or want to do at some point. They are generate awareness. It might be awareness on a health topic or of a particular brand or a solution or a behavior that is being promoted. Organizations are looking to generate referrals to products, to services, to points of care. Organizations are looking to get feedback on those points of care, on those products, on those services. How did it go? What was it like? How well was the quality? How well would you rate the quality? And lastly, they're looking for insights into patterns, predictive behaviors, patterns, trends, anything coming out of the markets in which, or the populations of interest that they're serving. So those 4 core jobs to be done are what's driving Nivi today and allow us to reach, having reached now more than over 1 million users, providing information, referrals, advice in these markets in India, Kenya, and Nigeria, and critically having partnered on a buy-in basis with over 20 organizations, generating the revenue we need to scale the solution further. Scene 3. So what does all this mean? Where do we go from here, present day? I think there are 3 core aspects of consumer-facing digital health that we could take away as a community of practice to better appreciate the significance of what's been innovated so far and where we're headed, because I believe, ladies and gentlemen, this is still early days. We are seeing new platforms coming online. There are ideas that are yet to be fully played out, and the opportunities are big in this space. But all of these ideas, all of these efforts are built around the idea of a commercial model that can expand access, improve quality. And why do I, before I get into those three things, that point about quality and access, those are the two of three principal components around UHC when it comes to universal health care. So thinking about what we're doing, we're effectively moving the needle as a community of practice with these commercial models to expand onto UHC. So there's three aspects I want us to take away, three important lessons. One, consumer digital health is fundamentally pivoting on this idea of readiness. Consumer digital health is ready when you need it, wherever, whenever you need it. This idea of self-care is not simply this idea of eating better or purchasing condoms when they're needed. It's about initiating that first step on a healthcare seeking journey. It's user-initiated or individual-initiated care. And what we're doing with consumer-facing digital health is unlocking that potential to make action possible when the consumer's ready. Secondly, consumer-facing digital health is fundamentally a rights-based agenda. The World Health Organization recognizes that there are 10 rights principles to health. There are a number of concepts you'd be very familiar having heard them, things like empowerment and informed choice. But what we're looking at here is the ability to act on not just legal principles, but programmatic metrics, being able to measure and monitor progress on rights-based agendas. I'll give you one example. There's certainly a need for more of these, but within family planning, informed choice is measured through the Method Information Index, 4 simple questions that can be captured at the point of exit. Well, you can't run a program with every facility being staffed by someone to capture that on the event that somebody's coming in or out on a family planning service. That's practically not possible to measure. In a digital-enabled environment with consumer-facing digital, it is possible to capture this kind of information routinely. Suddenly, things that were not possible to monitor and manage are now feasible, practical, in fact, eminently valuable for the health system. So these points around the rights-based agenda are now a practical way to think about going forward. But critically, and I'm going to say this finally, the third piece of consumer-facing digital is partnership. Partnership not to win the next grant, but partnership with a purpose. Partnership to drive towards consumer-based needs and priorities aligned with what the consumer needs from cradle to grave. No single organization is able to accompany the individual throughout their life course, but they can provide in partnership the means to advance particular points of particular priorities with consumers at points of care they need. And NIVI, among many others, is doing this precisely with partners in place. So we're really excited to be able to do that. Now, for those of you here looking for that first mover opportunity, looking for new content, and looking for new ways to add referral networks, you can do it through organizations like NIVI. So I'll just close by saying the opportunity to grow, to drive change in our space is going to be done with commercial models. It'll be done in the way that I see us doing it and I see others doing in this space. And I look forward to hearing from others today around what you would like to do with us and with others in this space to drive that change. Thank you.